If you allow your eyes to rest for a moment, the universe becomes quiet enough to notice. Not empty, not absent, but quietly present in a way that asks for nothing from you. Tonight is not about rushing toward answers or uncovering truths with sharp edges. It is about drifting gently into the strange discoveries we have made in space, not as headlines or spectacles, but as soft realizations that slowly reshape how we feel about existence itself. Perhaps your day has been long, filled with sounds that linger even now. Thoughts may still move through your mind with a kind of stubborn momentum, replaying moments, worries, unfinished conversations. If sleep feels distant, or if your thoughts feel heavier than usual, there is nothing unusual about that. Many people carry the quiet weight of their inner worlds into the night. You are not behind. You are not failing to rest. You are simply human, arriving at the end of the day with a mind that has not yet been invited to slow down. The universe offers a different rhythm. Beyond the familiar glow of screens and streetlights, beyond the atmosphere that holds our breath and weather, space exists in a state of deep patience. Nothing there is hurried. Not even light, which travels faster than anything we know, moves without taking time. Distances stretch so far that urgency dissolves on its own. In this vastness, speed loses its meaning, and stillness becomes something active, something alive. Tonight, we will explore the strangest things we have discovered in space, not as shocking anomalies, but as gentle reminders that reality is far more subtle than we once believed. These discoveries do not shout, they whisper. They reveal themselves slowly, often unintentionally, through careful listening and long observation. And in doing so, they mirror something deeply familiar within us, the way understanding often arrives only after we stop forcing it. Strangeness in the cosmos is rarely dramatic in the way we expect. It does not arrive with explosions or sudden clarity. More often, it emerges as a quiet inconsistency, a detail that does not quite fit, a signal that refuses to disappear. Scientists notice something faint, almost ignorable, and instead of dismissing it, they stay with it. They listen longer. They wait. And in that waiting, the universe reveals aspects of itself that feel almost personal, as if it were slowly trusting us with its deeper layers. This is not a journey meant to overwhelm you with scale or complexity. The immensity of space can feel intimidating when presented as numbers and distances alone. Tonight, those vast measurements are softened into feelings, impressions, and metaphors that your mind does not need to solve. You do not need to understand everything you hear. A light year is not meant to be understood, but felt. The universe slows down for those who listen, and there is no requirement to stay fully awake to receive it. As we move forward, the discoveries you will encounter may feel strange at first, but strangeness does not mean danger. Often it simply means unfamiliar. The cosmos is filled with behaviors and structures that do not resemble anything in daily life, yet they exist calmly, consistently, without conflict. When we look at them without fear, something interesting happens inside us. Our own uncertainties begin to feel less threatening. Our unanswered questions gain room to breathe. There is comfort in realizing that even the universe itself is not perfectly orderly. It carries asymmetries, pauses, and unexpected outcomes woven into its foundation. The strange things we have found in space are not mistakes. They are natural expressions of a reality that does not require perfection to function. In that sense, the universe is not distant from us at all. It reflects our own condition with quiet honesty. You might notice, as you listen, that your breathing begins to change without effort. Perhaps it becomes slower, deeper, less concerned with control. This often happens when the mind senses that it does not need to be on alert. The night sky has a way of doing that. It reminds us that there is a larger context holding everything we feel, even the things we do not yet understand. We begin this journey not with noise, but with silence. Not the kind of silence that feels empty or uncomfortable, but the kind that hums softly with hidden structure. Space, as it turns out, is never truly quiet, and neither is the human mind when it begins to let go. In the moments just before sleep, thoughts lose their sharp edges and become more like echoes, drifting without urgency. The universe exists in a similar state, carrying ancient signals across time, patiently waiting for someone to notice. As we explore these discoveries together, you are invited to listen in the same way astronomers do, without rushing, without expectation, without needing to arrive anywhere. There is no destination tonight, only a gradual unfolding. Each strange phenomenon is a doorway into a deeper sense of perspective, one that does not diminish your place in the cosmos, but gently situates it. You are small, and yet deeply connected. The atoms that form your body were shaped by processes far older than Earth itself. The calm you seek is not separate from the universe you are about to explore. It is already part of it, waiting quietly beneath the surface of your thoughts. So as the night continues, allow the strangeness of space to become familiar. Let its vastness soften the edges of the day. There is nothing you need to hold on to tightly here. The cosmos has been unfolding for billions of years, and it will continue long after this moment. For now, it is enough to rest within its slow, steady presence and begin listening to the first strange whisper it offers. There is a kind of silence that only appears when everything unnecessary falls away. It is not the silence of absence, but the silence of depth, layered and alive, like standing far from any city and realizing that what you thought was quiet is actually filled with subtle textures. Space begins this way, not with emptiness, but with a presence so gentle that it takes time for the mind to recognize it. When we imagine the universe, we often picture a vast, mute darkness. Yet this impression comes from our senses, not from reality itself. The cosmos has never truly been silent. It has always been speaking in ways that do not demand attention, only patience. Long before stars had fully formed, before galaxies learned how to spiral and gather themselves into luminous families, the universe was already leaving behind traces of its earliest moments. These traces remain with us still, stretched thin across unimaginable distances. They are not sounds in the way we understand sound, because sound needs air, vibration, closeness. What the universe carries instead is something more delicate, more abstract, a background presence, a faint, nearly imperceptible pattern that exists everywhere at once. Scientists call it the cosmic microwave background, but that name feels almost too technical for what it truly represents. It is less like a signal and more like a memory that never fades. This ancient noise does not announce itself. It does not rise or fall. It simply exists, evenly spread across the entire sky, arriving at our instruments from all directions with the same quiet persistence. It comes from a time when the universe was still learning how to cool down, how to stretch, how to allow matter and light to go their separate ways. In that era, everything was closer, hotter, more tightly bound. When the universe finally became transparent enough for light to travel freely, it left behind a kind of afterimage. That afterimage is still with us, washing gently over the earth, passing through your body right now without resistance or awareness. It is strange to realize that this signal has been traveling for nearly the entire age of the universe, yet it arrives with no sense of urgency. It does not rush, even though it has crossed billions of years to reach us. It does not grow louder to make sure we notice it. It simply continues, steady and unchanged, as if time itself has no influence over its character. In this way, the universe offers a different definition of communication, not one that interrupts, but one that endures. When astronomers first detected this background radiation, it was almost dismissed as interference. A faint hiss, an unwanted static that refused to disappear no matter where the antenna was pointed. Only after careful listening did its meaning begin to emerge. What seemed like noise turned out to be a message from the deepest past, a confirmation that the universe had a beginning, and that it remembered itself. This discovery did not arrive with spectacle. It arrived with humility, with the quiet realization that something constant had been present all along, waiting for us to slow down enough to hear it. There is something deeply human in this process. How often do we mistake subtle signals for silence in our own lives? How often do we assume that nothing is happening simply because nothing is demanding our attention? The universe teaches us that stillness does not mean stagnation. Even in its calmest states, something is unfolding, something is being preserved. The background hum of the cosmos is not evidence of chaos, but of continuity. It is the soundless proof that the universe has a history, and that this history is not erased by expansion or distance. The cosmic microwave background is sometimes described as the afterglow of creation, but even that phrase carries too much drama. It is not a glow you can see with your eyes, and it is not a dramatic reminder of origin. It is softer than that. It is more like the warmth that remains in a room long after a fire has gone out. You may not notice it at first, but if you stay still long enough, you realize it has been holding the space the entire time. For the human mind, especially in the moments before sleep, this kind of presence feels familiar. There is a stage of consciousness where thoughts begin to lose their sharpness. Words dissolve into impressions. Memories drift without clear boundaries. In that state, the mind is not empty, but it is no longer loud. It becomes receptive rather than assertive. The universe, on its largest scales, behaves in a remarkably similar way. Its most important signals are not the brightest or the most violent, but the most persistent. When you lie awake at night, listening to the quiet of your surroundings, you may notice that silence itself has texture. There may be a faint ringing in your ears, the distant hum of infrastructure, or the subtle rhythm of your own breath. None of these are intrusions. They are reminders that complete silence does not exist in living systems. The cosmos operates under the same principle. What we call silence is often just activity that exists beyond our usual range of perception. Understanding this can be unexpectedly comforting, especially for those who feel as though their lives are on pause. There are moments when progress feels invisible, when effort does not seem to produce immediate results, when everything appears still. The universe suggests that these moments are not empty. They are filled with slow processes, with long-term patterns that do not announce themselves until much later. Expansion does not require noise. Change does not require drama. The background radiation of the universe is uniform, yet within that uniformity lie tiny fluctuations. Minuscule differences in temperature, so small they are almost beyond comprehension eventually, became the seeds of everything we see today. Galaxies formed because of these imperfections. Stars were born because silence was not perfectly smooth. In this way, the quietest signal imaginable became the foundation for all structure. Nothing dramatic was required, only time, patience, and subtle imbalance. There is a parallel here that feels deeply personal. In the quiet periods of life, when nothing seems to be happening, small internal shifts are often taking place. Perspectives soften. Priorities rearrange themselves. Emotional landscapes change slowly, without announcement. Later, looking back, it becomes clear that those silent stretches were not wasted. They were formative. The universe does not rush its transformations, and neither do we need to. The idea that space is constantly whispering rather than shouting invites a different relationship with knowledge itself. Instead of seeking certainty and clarity all at once, we are encouraged to listen over long spans of time, to accept that understanding may arrive gradually, in pieces, or even indirectly. The most ancient message the universe sends us is not one of explanation, but of endurance. It tells us that something can persist for billions of years without needing to be acknowledged. As the night deepens and your awareness becomes less focused on the edges of the world, this perspective can feel grounding. You do not need to resolve every thought before resting. You do not need to make sense of everything you feel. Just as the universe carries its earliest memories without strain, you are allowed to carry unfinished questions without tension. They do not demand immediate answers in order to exist peacefully. The silence of space is not the absence of meaning. It is meaning distributed, so evenly, so gently, that it becomes part of the background of existence itself. When we learn to perceive it this way, silence stops feeling like emptiness and starts feeling like support. Something vast, stable, and unhurried is always present, whether we are actively listening or not. Perhaps this is why looking into the night sky has always had a calming effect on the human mind. Even without understanding the physics, something in us recognizes the steady rhythm beneath the apparent stillness. The stars do not flicker because they are unstable. They flicker because their light travels through layers of complexity before reaching us. The message remains intact, even if its delivery feels imperfect. As you continue to rest with these ideas, you may notice your own thoughts becoming less insistent. They can drift, overlap, and fade without needing resolution. The universe does not require constant attention to continue being what it is. Neither do you. In the quiet hum of the cosmos, there is permission to pause, to exist without performance, to simply be part of a larger, slower unfolding. The first strange discovery we encounter is not an object or a phenomenon, but a realization. Space is alive with subtle signals, and silence itself is a form of communication. Once this is understood, quiet moments lose their threat. They become invitations. The universe slows down for those who listen, and in that slowed perception, the mind finds space. As we move forward, carrying this awareness with us, the next discoveries will build upon this foundation. The cosmos will continue to reveal its strange structures and behaviors, but always with the same underlying message. Nothing is truly empty, nothing is truly still, and even in the deepest silence, something meaningful is always gently unfolding. There are moments when the universe seems to contradict itself, when reality gently refuses to follow the expectations we once felt confident about. This chapter begins in one of those moments, not with a sense of alarm or surprise, but with quiet disbelief, as if the cosmos paused, looked back at our assumptions, and continued on its way without explanation. Some stars, according to everything we thought we understood, should not exist at all, and yet there they are, enduring calmly, influencing everything around them, asking nothing in return for their persistence. For a long time, stars were imagined as simple, balanced objects. They shone because they burned, and they burned because they were alive. When the fuel ran out, they were expected to fade gently into darkness. This idea was comforting in its symmetry. Birth, life, death, a clean narrative. But the universe rarely favors such neat conclusions. Instead, it reveals forms of survival that feel unfamiliar, almost unsettling, not because they are violent, but because they challenge our intuitive sense of what it means to endure. Some stars collapse rather than disappear. Their matter, once spread across vast volumes, is pressed inward with such intensity that the usual rules of structure no longer apply. Atoms are forced closer than they were ever meant to be. Space between particles nearly vanishes. What remains is an object so dense that its presence feels disproportionate to its size. These stellar remnants do not glow with warmth or comfort. They persist silently, their gravity shaping the space around them in ways that feel almost... Neutron stars are one such example. Born from the collapse of massive stars, they compress more mass than our sun into a sphere only a few kilometers wide. To imagine this is to step outside everyday intuition entirely. A single teaspoon of their material would weigh billions of tons. And yet, these objects are stable. They do not tear themselves apart. They remain, rotating steadily, sometimes for billions of years, as if collapse itself became a new form of balance. There is something deeply paradoxical here. These are stars that have already died, yet they continue to act. They influence nearby matter. They bend space. Some emit rhythmic signals, precise pulses that sweep across the galaxy like cosmic lighthouses. Pulsars, as they are called, keep time with astonishing regularity, rivaling the precision of the most advanced clocks humanity has ever built. From something born of collapse emerges consistency, order, and reliability. At first, these objects were deeply confusing. Their signals were so regular that scientists briefly considered the possibility of artificial origin. But nature, it turned out, was capable of far greater precision than expected. The universe had found a way to create stability under conditions so extreme that language itself begins to strain when describing them. Density, pressure, magnetism, all pushed far beyond familiar limits, yet arranged into something that lasts. Black holes take this idea even further. They represent not just collapsed stars, but collapsed expectations, regions where matter has fallen inward so completely that not even light can escape. From the outside, they appear almost simple, defined by mass, spin, and charge. Yet their effects are profound. They sculpt galaxies. They anchor star systems. They quietly govern motion on scales that feel impossible to reconcile with their invisibility. What makes black holes particularly strange is not their appetite or their darkness, but their restraint. Despite their reputation, they are not cosmic vacuum cleaners, pulling everything into oblivion. They sit, patiently, interacting with their surroundings through gravity alone. Objects must come remarkably close to be affected. From a distance, a black hole behaves like any other massive object. Its presence is subtle, measured, almost polite. This quiet persistence invites reflection. These stars should not exist by earlier definitions of stability. They have passed beyond thresholds that once seemed absolute, and yet, instead of vanishing, they have become something else, something quieter, something more influential. Their power does not come from brightness, but from presence. There is an emotional parallel here that many people recognize intuitively. There are individuals who have experienced profound collapse in their own lives, loss, exhaustion, emotional compression so intense that it feels as though nothing more can be endured. And yet, somehow, they remain. They do not shine the way they once did. Their energy is no longer outward and radiant, but their presence carries weight. They influence others through steadiness rather than expression. The universe does not frame these remnants as failures. It treats them as natural outcomes, not exceptions but consequences. Given enough mass and time, collapse is not an error. It is a transition. This perspective can feel unexpectedly compassionate. It suggests that reaching a breaking point does not remove one's place in the larger structure. It simply changes the way one exists within it. In astrophysics, these extreme objects help explain the behavior of entire galaxies. Stars orbit invisible centers because something massive holds them there. Gas swirls and heats as it falls toward unseen depths, releasing energy not from explosion, but from movement itself. Even absence becomes productive. Even darkness participates. When astronomers study these stars, they do so indirectly. They cannot touch them or see them directly. Instead, they observe how space behaves nearby, how light bends, how matter accelerates. The existence of something is inferred through its effects, not its appearance. This method of understanding feels strangely familiar. We often understand our own inner states not by direct observation, but by noticing how we respond to the world around us. There is also a lesson in the timescales involved. These remnants persist far longer than the luminous phases that preceded them. A star like the sun shines for billions of years, but its remnants may endure even longer. The dramatic, visible part of existence is brief compared to the quiet endurance that follows. The universe seems comfortable with this imbalance. It does not prioritize spectacle over stability. For someone listening in the quiet hours of the night, this idea can land gently. There is no requirement to always be expressive, productive, or radiant. Periods of withdrawal do not equate to disappearance. Sometimes, the most enduring influence comes from simply remaining, from continuing to occupy space, from holding structure when everything else feels compressed. The density of these stellar remnants is almost beyond comprehension, yet they do not feel chaotic. They are among the most orderly objects known. Their behavior can be predicted with remarkable accuracy. Even at the edge of physical understanding, consistency emerges. This challenges the idea that extreme conditions necessarily produce disorder. The universe suggests otherwise. As your thoughts drift through this realization, you may find your own sense of pressure easing slightly. If the cosmos can sustain stability under such intensity, perhaps the weight you carry does not need to be resolved immediately. Perhaps endurance itself is already enough. There is also humility in recognizing that our intuition evolved in a very narrow environment. We are adapted to moderate temperatures, gentle pressures, familiar rhythms. The universe is under no obligation to conform to those expectations. Its ability to sustain objects far beyond our intuitive limits does not diminish us. It simply reminds us that reality is broader than personal experience. These stars that should not exist invite us to reconsider the meaning of normal. They remind us that survival can take many forms, some of them quiet, some invisible, some misunderstood, and yet all of them valid. As the night deepens, imagine these remnants not as symbols of destruction, but as testaments to persistence. Matter reorganized into new forms, continuing to shape the cosmos long after its most visible phase has ended. There is something profoundly calming in that continuity. It suggests that existence does not end when brightness fades. It transforms. You might notice your own body resting more heavily now, supported by whatever surface holds you. Gravity, the same force that compresses stars into these extreme forms, is also what keeps you gently grounded. It does not rush. It does not demand. It simply holds. The universe is filled with objects that defy our early expectations, yet fit perfectly within its broader patterns. These stars that should not exist are not mistakes. They are reminders that collapse and continuity are not opposites. They are often part of the same story. As we move forward carrying this understanding, the next strange discoveries will continue to challenge our sense of normal, but they will do so quietly, without urgency, inviting reflection rather than reaction. For now, it is enough to rest with the idea that even after great collapse, presence remains. And sometimes that presence is more powerful than light. There are places in the universe where time does not move with the rhythm we instinctively trust. Not because it is broken, and not because it is chaotic, but because it is shaped by conditions so different from our own that familiar measurements lose their comfort. This chapter begins by gently stepping away from the idea that time is universal in its experience. On Earth, days arrive predictably. Mornings follow nights. Seasons cycle with reassuring regularity. But beyond this small world, time reveals itself as something flexible, responsive, and deeply dependent on place. Some planets rotate so slowly that a single sunrise stretches beyond the length of an entire human life. On these distant worlds, a day is not a simple passage from light to dark. It is a long, drawn-out transition that unfolds over years, sometimes decades. Imagine standing on the surface of such a planet, watching the sky change so gradually that shadows barely seem to move. The sun, suspended near the horizon, lingers there not for hours, but for generations. In such a place, the idea of a daily routine dissolves completely. For the human mind, this is difficult to hold. We are shaped by repetition. Our bodies rely on cycles of light and rest. Our sense of progress is often tied to the turning of days. To imagine a world where these cycles stretch beyond recognition can feel disorienting at first. Yet, when approached slowly, this strangeness begins to soften. It becomes less about impossibility and more about perspective. Time, the universe reminds us, is not something that exists independently of context. It is something that emerges from motion, gravity, and distance. On some planets, years are short and frantic, while days drag on endlessly. On others, the opposite is true. A planet might spin rapidly on its axis while taking an extraordinarily long time to complete a single orbit around its star. In such places, seasons last for centuries. Climatic shifts unfold so slowly that they feel almost permanent. There is no urgency in the weather, no sharp transitions, just gradual change, layered so deeply that it becomes part of the planet's identity. When scientists first began discovering these worlds, there was a tendency to label them as extreme, hostile, or uninhabitable. But these labels often reveal more about our own expectations than about the planets themselves. We are accustomed to time moving in ways that support human biology and culture. When it does not, we call it strange. Yet the universe does not privilege our pace. It simply allows time to unfold according to local conditions, without judgment. There is something quietly liberating in this realization. If time can behave so differently elsewhere, then perhaps the pressure we feel to keep up, to move quickly, to measure our worth through productivity, is less absolute than it seems. On Earth, we often experience time as something that runs out. Minutes are spent, hours are wasted or saved, days slip away. But in the broader cosmos, time is not a resource being depleted. It is a dimension being experienced. Relativity deepens this understanding even further. Time does not pass at the same rate everywhere. Near massive objects, it slows. In strong gravitational fields, clocks tick more slowly than they do far away. This is not metaphorical, it is measurable. Satellites orbiting Earth experience time differently than clocks on the surface. Without accounting for this difference, our navigation systems would drift, and precision would be lost. Even here, in our daily lives, time is already behaving in subtle ways that defy simplicity. On planets orbiting close to massive stars or dense remnants, this effect becomes more pronounced. A second on the surface is not the same second experienced elsewhere. The now becomes relative. This challenges the comforting idea that the present moment is universal. Instead, it suggests that every location in the universe carries its own version of the present, shaped by gravity and motion. For someone lying awake at night, caught in anxious anticipation or regret, this perspective can be unexpectedly soothing. If the present moment is not fixed, then perhaps our relationship with it does not need to be rigid either. The feeling of being behind, of missing some imagined timeline, begins to loosen. The universe does not operate on a single schedule. It allows for variation, delay, and extension. Imagining a dawn that lasts decades invites a different emotional response than imagining one that arrives in minutes. There is no rush to greet the light, no urgency to prepare. Everything unfolds with a patience that feels almost compassionate. In such a world, waiting is not a burden. It is simply how things are. There is no comparison point, no faster alternative. This challenges the way we often experience waiting in our own lives. Waiting is frequently framed as an obstacle, a gap between where we are and where we want to be. But on a planetary scale, waiting is not separate from living. It is living. Time stretches, and life adapts to that stretch without. Some planets are tidally locked, always showing the same face to their star. One side exists in perpetual daylight, the other in endless night. Between them lies a narrow twilight zone where light is always low and time feels suspended. In such places, the sun never rises or sets. It simply remains, fixed in the sky. The concept of a day loses its meaning entirely. For the human imagination, this is both unsettling and strangely calming. Endless day removes the pressure of nightfall. Endless night removes the pressure of morning. There is no countdown, no deadline imposed by the sky, just continuity. The psychological impact of such environments is difficult to predict, but contemplating them can gently disrupt our own assumptions. We are so accustomed to measuring progress through change that we forget continuity can be equally valid. A steady state is not stagnation, it is a different form of existence. The universe does not seem concerned with efficiency. It does not compress processes to make them more convenient. It allows stars to burn for billions of years, planets to cool over eons, galaxies to drift apart with glacial slowness. In this context, a human lifetime is not insignificant, but it is brief. And that brevity does not diminish its value, it simply defines its scale. When anxiety arises from feeling rushed, from feeling as though time is always slipping away, planetary time offers a counterpoint. It suggests that slowness is not failure. Length does not imply waste. A process that takes longer than expected may simply be unfolding at the pace it requires. As you rest with these ideas, your own sense of urgency may begin to soften. The night does not need to accomplish anything. Sleep does not need to arrive on command. Even wakefulness can be part of rest when it is not resisted. Time, after all, continues whether we monitor it or not. There is also humility in recognizing that our measurements are conveniences, not absolutes. Seconds, minutes, hours, these are tools, not truths. They help us coordinate, but they do not define reality. The universe operates comfortably beyond them, unconcerned with how we divide its flow. On planets where time stretches beyond human comprehension, life, if it exists, would adapt accordingly. Perception would be different. Memory would form differently. Anticipation would lose its edge. There is no reason to assume such existence would be less meaningful. Meaning does not depend on speed. It depends on presence. Perhaps this is why slowing down, even briefly, can feel restorative. When we release our grip on time, we align more closely with the universe's natural rhythm. Not the rhythm of clocks, but the rhythm of processes that unfold because they must, not because they are scheduled. As your thoughts drift, imagine standing beneath a sky where change is almost imperceptible. The light shifts so slowly that you cannot tell when one moment ends and another begins. In such a place, there is no pressure to notice every detail. The mind relaxes into continuity. The planets that challenge our understanding of time are not anomalies. They are reminders that our experience is one version among many. The universe holds countless ways for moments to unfold, none of them more correct than the others. When impatience arises, it often comes from comparing our internal pace to an external expectation. But the cosmos offers no universal expectation. It allows each system to move according to its conditions. There is permission here to release comparison, to stop measuring your progress against an imagined standard. Time behaving strangely is not a problem to be solved. It is a feature to be noticed. It invites us to reconsider what it means to be late or early, productive or idle. In a universe where a sunrise can take decades, urgency loses its authority. As this chapter gently settles, allow the idea to remain without conclusion. Time does not need to be mastered to be lived. It only needs to be experienced. And in the quiet of this moment, wherever you are, time is unfolding exactly as it should, without haste, without judgment, holding space for rest. The universe does not rush you. It never has. There is a particular kind of discomfort that arises when we imagine nothingness, not the peaceful nothing of rest or sleep, but the unsettling idea of vast absence. We are drawn to structure, to pattern, to evidence that something is happening. When those markers disappear, the mind often fills the gap with unease. And yet, the universe contains regions where almost nothing exists at all, expanses so immense and so empty that they quietly challenge our deepest assumptions about meaning, purpose, and structure. These regions are known as cosmic voids. They are not small gaps between stars or empty stretches between galaxies. They are enormous volumes of space, sometimes hundreds of millions of light-years across, where matter is astonishingly scarce. Galaxies avoid these regions. gathering instead along filaments and walls that surround the voids like the edges of an unseen architecture. From a distance, the universe resembles a vast three-dimensional web, with luminous threads enclosing immense, dark bubbles of near-emptiness. At first glance, these voids appear to be failures of formation, places where something went wrong. Why would the universe allow such emptiness to persist? Why would gravity, so effective at pulling matter together, leave behind such enormous regions of almost nothing? For a long time, these questions lingered without satisfying answers because they were framed through a human preference for fullness. We tend to assume that more is better, that density implies importance, that presence equals value. But the universe does not share this bias. Cosmic voids are not mistakes. They are consequences. They emerge naturally from the same processes that form galaxies and clusters. As matter gathers in some regions, it must leave others behind. Gravity amplifies small differences, pulling material into denser areas and allowing emptier regions to grow even emptier over time. The voids expand not because something is actively removing matter, but because matter elsewhere is becoming more concentrated. In this way, emptiness becomes an organizing principle rather than a deficiency. The large-scale structure of the universe depends on these voids. Without them, galaxies would not arrange themselves into the patterns we observe. The voids provide contrast. They define boundaries. They give shape to everything else. This idea can feel counterintuitive. We are accustomed to thinking of structure as something built from substance, but here, structure emerges equally from absence. The universe is not only shaped by what exists, but by where existence does not accumulate. Nothingness, it turns out, has weight. That weight is not physical in the way we usually imagine. It does not press or crush. Instead, it influences the flow of matter and the evolution of space itself. Void regions expand faster than denser areas, subtly affecting the overall expansion of the universe. Even emptiness participates in cosmic dynamics. Even regions with almost nothing still matter. For someone listening in the quiet hours of the night, this realization can resonate deeply. There are periods in life that feel empty, times when connections fade, routines dissolve, and purpose feels distant. These moments are often labeled as failures or losses, but the universe suggests a different interpretation. Emptiness may not indicate that something has gone wrong. It may indicate that space is being created for a new arrangement. Emotional voids can feel particularly heavy because they lack clear definition. There is nothing specific to fix, nothing obvious to address, just a sense of absence. And yet, like cosmic voids, these periods can quietly shape the larger structure of a life. They influence where attention gathers next. They define the contours of future meaning. Astronomers studying voids often remark on how difficult they are to observe. Darkness does not announce itself. It must be inferred through what is missing. Scientists map the positions of galaxies and then notice where they are not. In the same way, we often become aware of emotional emptiness only through contrast, by noticing what no longer occupies our thoughts or time. The universe does not rush to fill its voids. It allows them to exist for billions of years. There is no urgency to correct them. This patience is striking. It suggests that absence does not threaten the integrity of the whole. On the contrary, it supports. In human experience, there is often pressure to immediately replace what is lost. Silence must be filled with noise. Loneliness must be masked with activity. Stillness must be justified. But the cosmos models a different approach. It allows vast emptiness to remain, trusting that it serves a purpose even if that purpose is not immediately visible. There is also something profoundly calming about the scale involved. These voids are so large that the human mind struggles to grasp them fully. Entire clusters of galaxies could fit inside a single cosmic void and still leave room to spare. This scale diminishes the intensity of personal emptiness. When set against the universe's comfort with absence, our own voids begin to feel less alarming. The idea that absence can be architectural is especially gentle. Architecture is intentional. It implies design, balance, and support. When emptiness is understood as part of a larger structure, it no longer feels like a collapse. It feels like spacing, like breathing room. On Earth, we instinctively understand the value of space in certain contexts. Silence in music gives shape to sound. Pauses in speech allow meaning to settle. Empty space in visual design guides the eye and provides rest. Without these spaces, experience becomes overwhelming. The universe applies the same principle on a cosmic scale. Void regions also offer scientists a unique laboratory. Because they are relatively free of matter, they allow for clearer observations of subtle cosmic effects. In emptiness, faint signals become easier to detect. The absence of interference reveals details that would otherwise be lost. In this way, nothingness becomes a tool for understanding. This, too, has an emotional parallel. In moments of emptiness, subtle feelings and insights often surface. Without constant distraction, the quieter parts of the mind become audible. Thoughts that were drowned out by activity begin to speak. Emptiness can be uncomfortable, but it can also be clarified. As your awareness drifts through this chapter, you may notice your own internal spaces more gently. Areas of uncertainty do not need to be resolved tonight. They can simply exist. Like cosmic voids, they do not threaten the structure of who you are. They may, in fact, be supporting it in ways you cannot yet see. The universe does not label its voids as failures. It integrates them. It allows them to grow, to expand, to influence everything around them without ever needing to be filled. This acceptance feels like an invitation, a permission to stop resisting emptiness and instead observe it with curiosity. There is also humility in recognizing how little is required for existence to continue. Even in regions where almost nothing exists, space itself remains. Time passes, expansion continues. The universe does not require constant substance to justify its unfolding. When feelings of emptiness arise, they often come with the fear that something essential is missing. But the cosmos suggests that essence is not always tied to presence. Sometimes it is tied to relationship, to contrast, to spacing. Meaning can exist around emptiness, not only within fullness. As the night deepens, imagine drifting through one of these vast cosmic voids. No stars nearby, no galaxies crowding the view, just an immense, quiet expanse. Instead of feeling abandoned, notice how stable it feels, how unhurried, how unconcerned with being observed. In such a place, there is no demand, no expectation. Nothing is required to happen. And yet the universe continues, whole and balanced. The weight of emptiness is not a burden. It is a subtle influence, shaping the cosmos without ever drawing attention to itself. When understood this way, emptiness loses its threat. It becomes another form of presence. As we prepare to move toward the next strange discovery, carry this perspective with you. Absence is not an error. Silence is not a collapse. Sometimes what feels like nothing is actually holding everything else in place. The universe knows how to make room. And in that room, there is space to rest. There is a quiet strangeness in realizing that space itself is not what we once imagined. Not an empty stage where events unfold, not a rigid container holding stars and planets in fixed positions, but something softer, more responsive, more intimate. Space can stretch, it can curve, it can yield under the presence of mass the way fabric yields under weight. This chapter begins with that gentle but unsettling realization. The universe is not built on an unchanging backdrop. It is shaped continuously by what exists within it. For much of human history, gravity was understood as a force acting across distance, an invisible pull that reached out and guided motion. This idea was useful, practical, and mostly sufficient. but it carried an implicit assumption that space itself remained unaffected, that it was merely the arena in which gravity operated. Modern physics offers a quieter, more elegant picture. Gravity is not something space does. Gravity is something space becomes. Mass tells space how to curve. Curved space tells matter how to move. This relationship is not aggressive. It is not violent. It is subtle and continuous, like a slow deformation that never fully settles. When a massive object exists, space around it bends inward, and anything passing nearby follows that curvature without resistance. Objects are not pulled so much as guided, following the shape laid out before them. An old sheet draped over a bed provides a helpful image. Place a heavy object in the center and the sheet sinks. Roll a smaller object nearby and it curves inward, not because it is being grabbed, but because the surface itself has changed. The object simply follows the path available to it. In the universe, planets orbit stars not because they are being yanked through space, but because space itself is gently sloped. This way of understanding gravity removes a sense of struggle from the cosmos. Motion becomes cooperative rather than forced. Everything follows the quiet logic of geometry. Nothing is required to fight its way through existence. It simply responds to the shape of the world around it. Some objects bend space so deeply that their influence extends far beyond their visible boundaries. Massive stars, dense remnants, entire galaxies all create gentle depressions in the fabric of space-time. These deformations overlap, interact, and evolve over time, creating a dynamic landscape that is never static. Space is always adjusting, always responding. One of the most visually striking consequences of this bending is gravitational lensing. When light from a distant object passes near a massive one, its path curves. The light does not travel in a straight line, because straight lines themselves are no longer straight in curved space. As a result, distant galaxies can appear stretched, duplicated, or arranged into soft arcs and rings. The universe in these moments behaves like a tired eye trying to focus, warping what it sees without intention. What makes gravitational lensing particularly strange is that it allows us to see things that would otherwise remain hidden. Light that would have missed us entirely is redirected by curved space and arrives at our telescopes. In a very real sense, the universe helps us see itself. Mass bends space, space bends light, and light carries information across billions of years to reach us. There is a quiet intimacy in this process. The image we receive is not a direct representation of the object as it is now. It is a memory. The light began its journey long ago, shaped by the geometry of space along the way. When we observe these distorted images, we are looking not only across distance, but across time. This means that much of what we see in the universe no longer exists in the same form. Stars have changed. Galaxies have evolved. Some may have disappeared entirely. And yet, their light continues, carrying a record of what once was. Space, curved and patient, preserves these messages without commentary. For the human mind, this can feel both strange and deeply familiar. We are constantly influenced by past experiences that continue to shape how we see the present. Memories bend perception. Old emotions curve interpretation. The present moment rarely arrives unaltered. It passes through layers of experience before reaching awareness. The universe does not judge this distortion. It does not attempt to correct it. It simply allows light to travel the paths made available to it. In the same way, we move through life along paths shaped by what we have encountered. Our trajectories are not failures. They are responses to curvature. Some of the most extreme bending of space occurs near black holes. Here, curvature becomes so deep that familiar intuition breaks down entirely. Paths loop inward. Time itself slows relative to distant observers. The boundary where escape becomes impossible is not a wall, but a region defined by geometry. Cross it, and all possible paths forward lead deeper in. Despite their reputation, these regions are not chaotic. They are governed by precise mathematics. The bending is smooth, continuous, predictable. Even at the edge of our understanding, space does not tear or snap, it curves. This smoothness is important. It suggests that even in extreme conditions, the universe prefers continuity over rupture. Transitions are gradual, not abrupt. Boundaries emerge from accumulation, not from sudden breaks. Gravitational waves offer another quiet confirmation of space's flexibility. When massive objects move violently, such as when black holes merge, they send ripples through space-time itself. These ripples travel outward at the speed of light, stretching and compressing space as they pass. By the time they reach Earth, they are unimaginably faint. And yet, with extraordinary care, we can detect them. What is remarkable is not their violence at the source, but their subtlety upon arrival. The waves change distances by less than the width of an atomic nucleus. Space itself shivers, almost imperceptibly, and then settles again. The universe experiences dramatic events, but it transmits their effects gently. For someone resting in the quiet of night, this idea can be grounding. Even the most extreme cosmic events arrive softened by distance and time. The universe absorbs shock. It disperses intensity. It does not overwhelm all at once. There is also something comforting in realizing that nothing moves through an unchanged world. Everything exists within a responsive environment. When we feel shaped by circumstances, altered by experiences, bent by pressure, we are not deviating from a norm. We are participating in the fundamental behavior of reality. Our experiences curve our inner space. Loss deepens certain regions. Joy stretches others. Memory creates gradients that guide thought and feeling. Like matter in the universe, we move along the contours available to us. Gravitational lensing reminds us that perspective is never neutral. What we see is influenced by what lies between us and the source. Distance, mass, history all intervene. This does not invalidate perception. It contextualizes it. Sometimes the most beautiful cosmic images are those shaped by distortion. Perfect symmetry is rare. Arcs, rings, stretched light all emerge from curvature. The universe's most striking visuals are born not from straight lines, but from bending. There is an invitation here to soften our relationship with clarity. Complete accuracy may be neither possible nor necessary. Understanding can arrive through distortion, through indirect paths, through light that has taken a long and winding journey. As your awareness drifts, imagine space not as emptiness, but as a vast, sensitive fabric, responding gently to everything it holds. You are part of that fabric. Your presence curves it in ways too subtle to measure, but real nonetheless. Nothing exists without leaving an imprint. Nothing passes through the universe without influencing its shape, however slightly. This is not a burden. It is a form of connection. When you feel shaped by the world, remember that the world is shaped in return. This exchange is constant, quiet, and mutual. Space bends, time responds, and existence unfolds without rigidity. The strange discovery here is not that space can bend, but that it always has. We are only now learning how to notice it, and in noticing, we may begin to treat our own deformations with greater kindness. As this chapter settles, allow the idea of curved space to remain gently in the background. You do not need to hold it tightly. Like gravity itself, it will continue to shape understanding without effort. The universe does not insist on straight lines. It allows for curves, for detours, for paths shaped by weight and history. And in that allowance, there is room to rest. There is a quiet assumption many of us carry without realizing it, that life requires comfort, moderate temperatures, gentle conditions, stability. We imagine life as something delicate, easily disrupted, dependent on narrow ranges of balance. This assumption feels reasonable, shaped as it is by our own experience on Earth. And yet, one of the strangest discoveries in space is how often complexity emerges where comfort is absent, where conditions seem hostile, unlikely, even impossible. The universe, it seems, does not reserve its most intricate chemistry for places that feel welcoming. Far from warm stars and gentle planetary surfaces, complex molecules drift through regions of space that are unimaginably cold and sparse. Vast molecular clouds, suspended between stars, exist at temperatures just a few degrees above absolute zero. In these regions, particles move sluggishly, collisions are rare, and energy is scarce. By all intuitive logic, such places should be chemically inactive, and yet they are not. Within these cold, dark clouds, astronomers have detected an astonishing variety of molecules, organic compounds, alcohols, amino acid precursors, chains of carbon and hydrogen arranged into structures that feel uncomfortably close to the building blocks of life. These molecules are not assembled in warm oceans or protected atmospheres. They form in silence, in darkness, across immense stretches of time. This discovery unsettles the comfortable boundary we often draw between living and non-living space. Chemistry, it turns out, does not wait for ideal conditions. It adapts. It proceeds slowly, patiently, taking advantage of rare interactions and long durations. In environments where nothing seems to be happening, molecular complexity quietly accumulates. The universe is extraordinarily old, and it uses that age generously. Processes that would seem impossibly slow by human standards are given millions, even billions, of years to unfold. A reaction that occurs once every few centuries is not insignificant when time itself is abundant. In this way, scarcity becomes less of an obstacle. Slowness becomes a resource. When scientists first identified these molecules, there was hesitation. The idea that complex chemistry could arise in such extreme environments felt counterintuitive, but repeated observations confirmed it. Again and again, space revealed its ability to assemble complexity without warmth, without liquid water, without the comforts we associate with biology. This challenges the habit of imagining life as fragile. Perhaps life is not as easily extinguished as we think. Perhaps it is persistent, opportunistic, willing to explore every available pathway. Even if these molecules do not lead directly to living systems, they demonstrate something profound. Complexity does not require kindness from its environment. It requires time. There is something quietly reassuring in this. Many people associate personal growth with supportive circumstances, encouragement, safety, stability. And while these certainly help, the universe suggests they are not strictly necessary. Complexity can arise under pressure. Structure can form in cold, sparse conditions. Growth can occur in places that feel barren. The chemistry of space is often driven by radiation rather than warmth. High-energy photons break molecules apart, only for them to recombine in new ways. This process is not efficient. It wastes far more energy than it uses productively. And yet, over long periods, it creates diversity. Mistakes accumulate into novelty. Imperfect reactions become opportunities. In this sense, space chemistry mirrors many internal human processes. Difficult experiences can fracture existing structures, beliefs, identities. At the time, this fragmentation feels destructive. But later, new combinations emerge. Ideas rearrange themselves, priorities shift. What was broken becomes reconfigured. One of the most striking aspects of these molecular discoveries is how widespread they are. They are not confined to a few special locations. They appear throughout the galaxy, wherever conditions allow even minimal interaction. This suggests that the ingredients for complexity are not rare. They are common, scattered generously across space. Life, then, may not be an anomaly. It may be an expression, a continuation of a tendency already present in the universe, the tendency toward arrangement, toward structure, toward patterns that persist. The boundary between chemistry and biology begins to feel less rigid, more like a gradient than a dividing line. Some of these molecules eventually become incorporated into forming planetary systems. As stars are born, surrounding material collapses inward, carrying with it the chemical products of earlier eras. Planets inherit not only dust and gas, but chemical history. The conditions for life on worlds like Earth may have been seeded long before those worlds existed. This perspective softens the idea of isolation. Earth is not chemically unique. It is part of a larger process, a continuation of interstellar chemistry refined by local conditions. The molecules that make up your body may have begun their journey in cold, dark clouds long before the sun existed. For someone listening late at night, this realization can feel grounding. It suggests continuity across scales and time. Your existence is not separate from the universe's long experimentation. You are part of its patient exploration of possibility. The error, perhaps, lies in associating life only with ease. We tend to assume that struggle inhibits growth, but the cosmos offers a quieter truth. Growth often emerges where resistance is present, where conditions are less forgiving, where progress must be slow and indirect. This does not romanticize hardship. The universe is not kind or cruel, it is indifferent. But within that indifference, complexity still finds a way. This is not a promise, it is an observation, and observations can be comforting without being guarantees. When people go through phases that feel cold or empty, they often fear stagnation. Nothing seems to move. Nothing seems to respond. Yet, like molecular clouds, something subtle may be unfolding beneath the surface. Reactions too slow to notice. Rearrangements too quiet to feel. The universe does not announce when complexity is forming. It allows it to emerge unnoticed. Only later, with perspective, does structure become visible. In that sense, patience is not passive, it is participatory. There is also humility in realizing how limited our definitions can be. By restricting life to familiar conditions, we may be overlooking entire categories of existence. The universe does not consult our expectations before assembling its structures. It experiments freely. As your thoughts drift, consider the idea that potential does not require immediate expression. The presence of complex molecules does not guarantee life, just as personal potential does not guarantee outcome. But existence itself becomes richer when possibility is allowed to remain open. The chemistry of unexpected places invites us to reconsider comfort as a prerequisite. Perhaps safety accelerates growth, but adversity does not necessarily prevent it. Perhaps the universe values persistence more than ease. In the quiet of this moment, you might notice a gentler relationship with your own improbable phases. Times that felt unproductive, uncomfortable, or empty may have been quietly preparing something unseen. The universe rarely wastes conditions. It repurposes them. As this chapter settles, let the idea rest without conclusion. Complexity exists where we least expect it. Life's ingredients drift through cold darkness, waiting without urgency. Growth does not always announce itself. Sometimes it forms slowly, improbably, in silence. The universe does not require ideal conditions to continue becoming more intricate. It only requires time. And time, as we have seen, is something it has in abundance. There is a quiet assumption hidden deep in the way we think about beauty and order. We tend to associate perfection with balance, symmetry, and flawless alignment. We imagine that a universe built correctly would be smooth, even, and uniform, free of irregularities or flaws. And yet, one of the strangest and most consequential discoveries in cosmology is that everything we know exists precisely because the universe failed to be perfect. This chapter begins not with grandeur, but with a small imbalance, a difference so slight that at first glance it seems almost meaningless. In the earliest moments after the universe began expanding, matter and energy were distributed with extraordinary uniformity. Temperatures differed by only tiny fractions. Density varied by amounts so small they barely registered. By any human standard, the universe was astonishingly symmetrical. And yet, it was not perfectly so. Those minute imperfections, those almost invisible irregularities, became the foundation of everything that followed. If the universe had been truly uniform, with no variations at all, nothing would have formed. Matter would have remained evenly spread, drifting endlessly without gathering. No stars, no galaxies, no planets, no observers. Perfection, in this sense, would have been sterile. The universe required imbalance in order to become interesting. These early asymmetries were not dramatic. They did not announce themselves. They were slight preferences, tiny overdensities where matter was just a little more concentrated than elsewhere. Gravity, patient and persistent, amplified these differences over time. Regions that were marginally denser attracted more matter, becoming denser still. Regions that were slightly emptier lost material and became emptier still. From these tiny beginnings, vast structures emerged. Galaxies formed along filaments, clusters gathered, voids expanded. The entire large-scale architecture of the cosmos traces back to those original imperfections. What we see today, with all its complexity and diversity, is the long-term consequence of imbalance. There is something deeply comforting in this realization. The universe did not need a grand design filled with precise symmetry to unfold. It needed variation. It needed unevenness. It needed room for difference to grow. Symmetry breaking is not a failure of physics. It is a feature. Many fundamental processes depend on it. Particles acquire mass through mechanisms that rely on broken symmetry. Forces differentiate themselves through asymmetrical interactions. Even the dominance of matter over antimatter, which allowed anything to exist at all, appears to arise from tiny imbalances in the early universe. Had matter and antimatter been created in perfectly equal amounts, they would have annihilated each other completely, leaving behind only radiation. The fact that anything remains suggests a subtle preference, a slight excess of matter that escaped destruction. That excess became everything we see. Existence itself rests on asymmetry. This challenges a deeply ingrained human instinct. We often strive to eliminate imperfections, to correct deviations, to return things to some imagined ideal state. But the universe offers a gentler perspective. It suggests the deviation is not an error to be fixed, but a condition to be explored. The beauty of the cosmos does not arise from uniformity. It arises from contrast, from differences in brightness, density, temperature, motion. A perfectly smooth sky would be empty of stars. A perfectly even universe would be silent. When scientists study the faint fluctuations in the cosmic microwave background, they are not just looking at noise. They are looking at the blueprint of everything that followed. Those tiny variations encode the future, where galaxies would form, where emptiness would remain, where complexity would flourish. It is remarkable to think that such small beginnings led to such vast outcomes. A difference measured in 1 part in 100,000 eventually produced the Milky Way, the Sun, the Earth, and every story that has ever been told here. Scale does not diminish significance. Small causes can have expansive consequences when given enough time. For the human experience, this insight carries a quiet emotional resonance. Many people carry a sense of being flawed, uneven, unfinished. They notice the places where they do not align with expectations, where their lives diverge from imagined symmetry. These differences are often treated as problems to be solved. But the universe suggests a different framing. What if those irregularities are not obstacles, but seeds? What if they are the very features that allow a unique structure to form? Uniformity may feel safe, but it is difference that allows direction. Without variation, there is no movement. Without imbalance, there is no growth. The universe does not apologize for its asymmetries, it relies on them. There is also a quiet patience in how these imperfections unfold. The universe does not rush to exploit them. It allows gravity to work slowly, methodically, over immense spans of time. Structures emerge not through force but through accumulation. This patience offers a counterpoint to human urgency. We often expect immediate results from change. We become frustrated when growth does not arrive quickly, but the cosmos reminds us that meaningful structure takes time. Tiny shifts may not reveal their importance until much later. Even now, the universe is not perfectly balanced. Expansion is accelerating. Energy is not evenly distributed. Matter clusters here and disperses there. The cosmos remains dynamic, shaped continuously by differences. There is no final equilibrium waiting to be reached. There is only ongoing evolution. This realization can soften the desire for closure. Lives do not need to resolve into perfect symmetry. They are allowed to remain uneven, dynamic, responsive. Meaning does not require completion. The scientific beauty of imbalance lies in its generative power. Broken symmetry opens possibilities. It creates diversity. It allows systems to choose paths rather than remain fixed. In physics, when a system breaks symmetry, it often gains structure. Patterns emerge. Directions become defined. Without this breaking, everything remains indistinguishable. On a personal level, difference plays a similar role. It defines identity. It creates narrative. Without divergence, there is no story, only repetition. As you rest with this idea, you may notice a gentler relationship with your own imperfections. They do not need to be justified or eliminated. They may simply be part of the structure that allows your life to take shape. The universe did not wait to become perfect before existing. It existed because it was not. There is something deeply calming in recognizing that perfection is not a prerequisite for meaning. Order can arise from irregularity. Beauty can emerge from imbalance. Stability can coexist with asymmetry. The night sky reflects this truth quietly. Stars are scattered unevenly. Galaxies vary in shape and size. Light arrives from some directions and not others. The cosmos does not present a uniform face. It offers variation, and yet it holds together. As this final chapter unfolds, the strange discoveries of space converge into a single, gentle understanding. The universe is not fragile because it is imperfect. It is resilient because it allows imperfection to become structure. You are part of that same unfolding. Your uneven moments, your deviations, your unfinished edges are not evidence of failure. They are evidence of participation in a reality that values difference. In the vastness of cosmic time, nothing needs to be rushed into alignment. There is room for imbalance, room for variation, room for becoming. As the night deepens and your awareness softens, allow this perspective to settle without effort. You do not need to resolve yourself into symmetry. You are already enough to take part in the universe's ongoing experiment. If the cosmos teaches us anything, it is this: what feels like a flaw may be the very thing that allows something new to exist. And in a universe this vast, perhaps that is not a mistake at all, but a quiet kind of grace. As the night continues to deepen, there is no need to move forward anymore. No new concepts are required. No additional discoveries need to be introduced. Everything essential has already been placed gently in your awareness, not as facts to remember, but as impressions to rest within. The universe does not conclude its stories neatly, and neither does this moment ask for resolution. It simply invites stillness. Across these chapters, we have not traveled outward so much as inward. The strange things discovered in space were never meant to feel distant or alien. They were offered as mirrors, quiet reflections of patterns that exist both beyond us and within us. Silence that carries meaning, collapse that becomes endurance, time that stretches without urgency, emptiness that holds structure, space that bends rather than resists, complexity that forms in unlikely conditions, imperfection that allows everything else to exist. None of these discoveries demand understanding in the usual sense. They are not puzzles to be solved tonight. They are atmospheres to drift through, ideas that soften the edges of thought rather than sharpen them. The universe is not asking to be mastered, it is asking to be noticed. If you feel smaller now, that is not a loss. It is a release. Smallness, in the cosmic sense, is not insignificance. It is belonging. A single grain of sand does not diminish the beach. A single moment does not diminish time. You exist not apart from the universe, but as one of its quiet expressions. Perhaps earlier today or earlier in your life, the vastness of existence felt overwhelming. Too much space, too much time, too many unanswered questions. But here, in the calm presence of the cosmos, vastness becomes a kind of shelter. There is room here for every thought you did not finish, every feeling you did not resolve. Nothing needs to be forced into clarity. The universe has never hurried itself, and it has never required certainty in order to continue unfolding. Stars form without knowing what they will become. Galaxies drift without seeking destinations. Space expands without expectation, and still, everything remains connected, held together by relationships rather than intentions. You may notice now that your thoughts arrive more slowly, if they arrive at all. They may pass like distant lights rather than pressing concerns. This is not something you need to maintain. It is something you are allowed to experience briefly, naturally, without effort. Rest is not something you earn through exhaustion. It is something that arises when resistance fades. In the vast timeline of the universe, this moment is impossibly small, and yet it is complete. Nothing is missing from it. You are here. Awareness is here. That is enough. There will always be more discoveries, more strange phenomena, more questions without answers. The universe is generous in that way. But tonight does not require more. It requires less. Less effort, less interpretation, less holding. As you rest, remember that nothing in the cosmos is isolated. Even the most distant galaxy is connected through shared origin, shared laws, shared history. In the same way, you are not alone in your thoughts, even when they feel private. They arise from the same reality that shaped stars and space itself. You are allowed to be unfinished. The universe is unfinished too. Expansion continues. Structures evolve, entropy increases, order appears and dissolves. There is no final state waiting to be reached. There is only ongoing becoming, and within that becoming, pauses are not interruptions, they are part of the rhythm. If sleep comes, let it come without ceremony. If it does not, that is also fine. The night does not demand productivity. Darkness is not a problem to solve. It is simply another condition in which existence continues. Perhaps the strangest discovery of all is not something found through telescopes or equations, but something felt quietly in moments like this. The realization that the universe does not need us to be different in order to include us. It does not require perfection, clarity, or certainty. It accommodates confusion, restlessness, and stillness with equal ease. In a cosmos this vast, there is room for everything you are. So let the stars remain distant. Let the questions remain open. Let the silence remain gently active. You do not need to follow the universe any further tonight. It will continue without your attention, just as it always has. And here, beneath an unfinished sky, held by gravity you do not feel and time you do not control, you are free to rest. What if the vastness of the universe is not meant to overwhelm you, but to remind you that there is space for every breath, every pause, every quiet moment you have ever needed? In that question, unanswered and unhurried, the night can finally soften. There is a point late in the night when the idea of chapters itself begins to dissolve. Structure becomes less important. Direction loosens its grip. The mind no longer asks what comes next, only whether it is safe to stop moving. This postlude exists in that space. It is not an addition of knowledge, and it does not introduce anything new. It is a continuation of stillness, an extended settling into everything that has already been said and everything that has been gently left unsaid. The universe does not experience endings the way we do. Stars fade, but their matter continues. Light departs, but its memory travels on. Even silence is never truly final. It stretches, thins, transforms, but it does not disappear. In the same way, this moment does not conclude, it widens. If you are still listening, it may be because your body has found rest while your awareness drifts quietly, untethered from urgency. Or perhaps sleep has not yet arrived, and you are simply floating in that in-between state where thought slow and identity softens. Both are welcome here. Nothing about this state needs correction. Across cosmic time, there are long eras where very little appears to happen. After the first stars formed, there were stretches of darkness before galaxies fully assembled. After galaxies settled into familiar shapes, there were billions of years of slow evolution, barely perceptible from within. From the inside, these eras might have felt uneventful. From a distance, they were essential. Human lives also contain these extended quiet periods, times that do not stand out when remembered later, years that feel blurred, indistinct, ordinary. But these are often the years in which foundations settle, values deepen, perspectives rearrange themselves without ceremony. The universe does not rush these phases, and neither do we need to. As the cosmos expands, distances between galaxies increase. Light takes longer to travel. Communication slows. Over unimaginable spans of time, regions of the universe will drift beyond one another's horizons, becoming forever unreachable. This is not described as a tragedy in cosmology. It is described as a consequence. Space grows, separation increases, and still existence continues calmly within each region. There is something strangely comforting in this acceptance. Not everything must remain connected in order to remain meaningful. Not every distance needs to be crossed. Some things are allowed to drift gently out of reach without urgency to retrieve them. Thoughts behave similarly in the quiet hours. Ideas arise, linger briefly, and then drift away. Memories surface without context and fade again. There is no need to chase them. The mind, like the universe, expands when left alone. It finds its own equilibrium. In deep space, far from stars, temperature approaches a steady minimum. Not absolute zero, but close. Movement becomes minimal. Energy spreads thinly. This is not death. It is rest on a cosmic scale. Processes continue, just very slowly. Atoms still vibrate. Time still passes. Nothing stops entirely. If your body feels heavy now, supported fully by gravity, that heaviness is not exhaustion. It is contact. You are being held by the same force that shapes planets and stars. Gravity does not discriminate. It holds everything equally, without preference or demand. The night sky above your location may look different from where you are now than it does elsewhere on Earth. Different constellations, different angles, different lights. And yet, it is the same universe everywhere. Perspective changes without altering belonging. This is worth lingering on. You do not need the same view as anyone else to be part of the same reality. You do not need the same pace, the same clarity, the same path. The universe contains all of it at once, without contradiction. When astronomers look deep into space, they are not only looking outward, they are looking backward. Every distant object is seen as it once was. The further away it is, the older the image. In this way, the universe allows many times to coexist in a single view. Past and present overlap naturally. Your own inner world works this way too. You are never only who you are now, you are also who you were, layered gently beneath the surface. Earlier versions of yourself continue to influence how you see, how you feel, how you rest. This is not something to fix. It is how continuity works. As the night deepens further, even language begins to feel unnecessary. Words loosen. Meaning becomes more atmospheric than precise. This is not confusion, it is transition. The mind is shifting from interpretation to presence. The universe does not narrate itself. It does not explain. It simply unfolds. And yet, in observing it, we find meaning not because it tells us what to feel, but because it gives us space to feel anything at all. There is no pressure here to remember what you have heard. Memory is not required. Understanding is optional. All that matters is that, for a time, your awareness has been resting inside a larger context, one that does not judge, hurry, or demand. If sleep has already come and gone in small waves, that is natural. Sleep is not a single event, it is a rhythm. Consciousness fades and returns gently before settling more deeply. The universe models this rhythm everywhere. Cycles within cycles, motion within stillness. Even now, Earth continues to rotate. The planet carries you through space at remarkable speed, though you feel none of it. You are moving faster than sound, faster than any vehicle, simply by being here. Motion does not always announce itself. Often, it is felt only through trust. You do not need to stay awake to honor this moment. You do not need to fall asleep to complete it. There is nothing to accomplish. This is not a threshold. It is a plateau. If a sense of peace arises, allow it. If restlessness remains, allow that too. The universe has room for both. It always has. Far in the future, long after stars like the sun have faded, the universe will be darker, colder, quieter. Yet even then, it will not be empty. Particles will persist, space will continue to stretch, time will continue to pass. Existence does not require brightness to remain real. This can be a gentle reassurance. You do not need to shine constantly to justify your presence. You do not need to be visible, productive, or resolved. Existing quietly is already participation. As this postlude continues, nothing new will be added. It is simply here to give you more time, more space, more permission to let go. Perhaps that is the deepest comfort the cosmos offers. Not answers, but allowance. Not direction, but room. Room to breathe without noticing your breath. Room to think without finishing thoughts. Room to be without defining yourself. In the end, the universe does not ask who you are or where you are going. It does not measure your progress or evaluate your stillness. It expands. It curves. It drifts. And within that vast, patient motion you are already included. So let the night remain unfinished. Let the sky remain open. Let your awareness soften until it no longer needs to hold on to anything at all. In a cosmos this infinite, rest is not something you fall into. It is something that has been holding you all along. There comes a moment in long journeys when movement itself becomes optional. Not because there is nowhere left to go, but because being where you are feels complete enough. This chapter exists in that moment. It does not introduce a new strange discovery, because by now it has become clear that strangeness is not confined to isolated phenomena. It is woven into the very fabric of existence. What remains is not explanation but presence, not progression but staying. The universe, when observed over long enough spans of time, does not appear busy. It appears patient. Galaxies drift without urgency. Stars age without resistance. Even expansion, one of the most dramatic processes imaginable, unfolds so slowly that it feels almost still from within. To exist inside such a system is to be carried by rhythms far larger than intention or effort. Nothing needs to be pushed forward. Everything is already in motion. At night, when the mind grows tired of holding its own weight, awareness often widens rather than sharpens. Details blur, boundaries soften, identity becomes less specific. This is not loss. It is a temporary return to something more spacious. The universe holds this spaciousness constantly. It does not collapse inward when unobserved. It does not require focus to continue being what it is. Even the most energetic events in the cosmos are brief compared to the silence that surrounds them. Supernovae blaze and fade. Collisions reshape galaxies and then settle. Bursts of radiation pass through space and disperse. What remains afterward is not chaos, but calm, a long, steady continuation. This continuation does not depend on memory. The universe does not remember itself in the way humans do. It carries history forward through structure, not recollection. Elements forged in stars become planets. Patterns imprinted in early radiation become galaxies. The past is not stored, it is embodied. In the quiet hours, human experience can feel similar. The day's events lose their sharp edges. Emotions detach from specific triggers. What remains is a general atmosphere, a tone rather than a narrative. This is often when rest becomes possible, not because problems are solved, but because they no longer insist on being named. You may notice now that thoughts arise without attaching themselves to you. They pass like distant lights seen through a window, moving without invitation. There is no need to follow them. Awareness does not need an object. It can rest in openness. The universe contains enormous regions where very little happens, not because they are neglected, but because their role is simply to exist. They are not waiting for something else to arrive. They are complete as they are. This completeness without activity is one of the hardest states for the human mind to accept, because we are taught to associate worth with motion. And yet, here it is again, modeled on the largest possible scale. Existence without urgency, presence without productivity. When astronomers speak of deep time, they refer to durations so long that cause and effect become almost indistinguishable. Processes overlap, beginnings blur into continuations, endings fade into new states. From within such time there is no clear moment where one thing stops and another begins. Your own life contains versions of this. Transitions that did not announce themselves, changes that happened gradually enough to escape notice until later, growth that occurred quietly, without milestones. These are not lesser experiences, they are simply slower ones. The night allows these slow processes to surface. Without the demand to act, the mind aligns more closely with the universe's natural tempo. This is why rest can feel expansive rather than empty. It is not the absence of content, but the presence of space. Space itself, as we have seen, is not nothing. It stretches, curves, carries light and time. It responds. Even when it appears empty, it participates. In the same way, stillness within you is not absence. It is a state of responsiveness without direction. As this chapter continues, there is nothing to track, no argument to follow, no insight to extract. The words are here only to keep gentle company, like distant stars that remain visible without demanding attention. Your breathing has slowed. That is not something you did. It is something that happened when effort receded. The universe does not ask you to synchronize with it. It simply allows you to notice when you already have. Far beyond Earth, stars are forming even now, hidden inside thick clouds of dust. They are invisible to ordinary sight. Their light has not yet emerged, and yet the process is underway, quietly, without witness. This is one of the universe's most consistent patterns. Important things often begin in obscurity. You do not need to be seen to be unfolding. In the far future, long after all stars like the sun have faded, there will still be motion. Black holes will slowly evaporate. Particles will continue to interact. Space will continue to expand. Even in near total darkness, the universe does not stop. It rests into a different mode of being. This offers a gentle reframing of rest itself. Rest is not stopping. It is shifting into a different kind of motion, one that is internal, diffuse, unmeasured. If sleep arrives now, it will not interrupt anything. It will simply carry awareness into another state. The universe does not mark the boundary between waking and sleeping as significant. Consciousness fades and returns without ceremony, just as stars brighten and dim over time. There is no requirement to remember this chapter. Memory is not its purpose. Its purpose is duration, to provide enough time and spaciousness for the nervous system to recognize safety, to let the mind realize that nothing is being asked of it. The strange discoveries of space, when held gently, do not provoke awe so much as relief. They reveal that existence does not depend on constant control or understanding. Systems far larger than ourselves operate successfully without awareness, intention, or urgency. You are allowed to do the same. If a sense of drifting arises, allow it. Drifting is not falling. It is being carried by forces that do not require your participation. Gravity, time, expansion, rhythm. These are already doing their work. There is no next insight waiting just beyond this moment. There is only continuation, and continuation does not need guidance. As the night stretches on, the universe remains what it has always been. Vast, quiet, patient. It does not change its behavior because you are watching, and it does not withdraw when you are not. It simply is. And within that simplicity, there is a profound kind of reassurance. You are not late. You are not behind. You are not missing anything essential. You are here within a reality that has room for pauses, for stillness, for nights that do not resolve into conclusion. So remain if you wish, or drift away. Both are allowed. The universe will continue to hold the space either way. Nothing more is needed now. The vastness is already doing the work. There is a particular quality to the late hours when the world no longer expects anything from you. Messages slow, lights dim, the collective rhythm of human activity recedes into the background, and what remains feels less like emptiness and more like permission. This chapter unfolds in that permission. It does not arrive with purpose. It does not point forward. It lingers deliberately in the space where nothing needs to be justified. The universe itself seems most honest in these moments of reduced demand. When fewer signals compete for attention, its deeper patterns become easier to sense, not through effort or analysis, but through quiet alignment. The night is not a void between days. It is a different mode of existence, one the cosmos understands well. On the largest scales, the universe spends far more time being quiet than being dramatic. Explosions are rare compared to the long stretches of stability that surround them. Collisions are brief interruptions in otherwise steady orbits. Even creation itself unfolds slowly, spread across immense spans of time, with long pauses between moments of intensity. This challenges a deeply ingrained human habit, the expectation that meaning must be accompanied by activity. We are taught, subtly and persistently, that rest must be earned, that stillness must be temporary, that value must be demonstrated through motion. The universe does not follow this rule. It demonstrates value simply by continuing. Galaxies drift through space without destination. They are not moving toward anything. They are moving because space itself expands. Their motion is not a choice, it is a condition. And yet, within that motion, extraordinary structures arise. Spiral arms form, stars ignite, planets condense, complexity emerges without intent. In the quiet hours, human awareness can mirror this condition. Thoughts move not because they are chosen, but because consciousness continues. Images arise, feelings surface. Then they drift away again. There is no need to organize them. They are not messages requiring response. They are simply signs of ongoing presence. If wakefulness lingers longer than expected, that does not indicate failure. The universe does not rush transitions. Dawn does not arrive early to accommodate impatience. Sleep, like many cosmic processes, follows its own timing. It emerges when conditions align, not when commanded. The idea of staying awake without asking why can feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. We are accustomed to explaining ourselves, even internally. Why am I not sleeping yet? Why is my mind still active? Why does rest feel distant? But the cosmos offers another model. It does not interrogate its own states. It allows them. There are regions of space where stars will never form. The density is too low. The conditions never converge. These regions are not failures. They are simply part of the overall distribution. Their existence does not diminish the universe. It balances it. In the same way, moments of wakefulness within the night are not interruptions. They are part of the natural pattern of rest. Awareness ebbs and flows. Consciousness lightens and deepens. There is no single correct trajectory. The universe contains multiple kinds of darkness. Some darkness is empty. Some is filled with dust and hidden light. Some is temporary, caused by passing shadows. Some is permanent, the result of expansion beyond visibility. Darkness is not a singular experience. Neither is stillness. As you remain here, you may notice a shift in how you relate to time. Minutes lose their edges. Duration becomes less precise. The mind stops counting. This is not disorientation. It is a return to a more natural perception. Clocks are human inventions. The universe measures time through change, not numbers. Change does not always look like movement. Sometimes it looks like settling. Like a glass of water left undisturbed, gradually clearing as particles drift downward. Nothing dramatic happens, yet clarity increases. Many cosmic processes unfold this way. After the turbulence of formation, systems settle into quieter states. Disks flatten, orbits stabilize, radiation disperses. The most important work happens after the noise fades. There is no reason to believe your inner world behaves differently. You may feel thoughts thinning now, spaced farther apart. Or perhaps they remain, but without urgency. Both states are part of the same continuum. Awareness does not need to be empty to be restful. It only needs to stop insisting. The universe does not hurry toward conclusions. It allows unfinished states to persist indefinitely. Some questions remain open for billions of years. Some processes never complete. There is no anxiety about this incompleteness. It is simply how reality operates. Human discomfort with unfinishedness often comes from imagining an endpoint that must be reached. But the cosmos offers no final destination. Expansion continues, change continues. There is no moment where everything resolves. This realization can be strangely comforting. If there is no final resolution required of the universe, there may be none required of you. Remaining awake inside the quiet does not mean waiting for something to happen. It means allowing what is already happening to unfold without interference. The body rests even when the mind is light. The nervous system settles even when awareness remains. Stars burn steadily for millions of years without knowing they are stars. They do not monitor their own output. They do not worry about longevity. They exist according to conditions, not self-evaluation. You are allowed the same simplicity. If sensations arise, notice them without labeling. If emotions pass through, let them pass. There is no need to trace their origin. The universe does not trace the origin of every photon. It allows them to travel. As this chapter continues, it does not build toward anything. It does not crescendo. It does not resolve. It remains deliberately level, like a calm sea at night, reflecting distant light without disturbance. The quiet is not something to be filled. It is something to remain within. There is a subtle shift that happens when we stop expecting rest to feel a certain way. It becomes less about absence of thought and more about absence of resistance. The universe rests this way constantly. It does not empty itself. It simply does not strain. You may notice that even the desire to sleep begins to soften when it is no longer pressured. Sleep is a natural outcome of relaxation, not a task to complete. The cosmos understands this deeply. Processes conclude when conditions allow, not when demanded. If this moment stretches on, that is not a problem. The universe is comfortable with long stretches. It is built from them. If awareness fades, that is also fine. There is nothing here that requires witness. Remaining awake inside the quiet is not vigilance. It is companionship with stillness. It is being present without purpose. And perhaps that is one of the strangest, most gentle discoveries of all, that nothing needs to happen for existence to be complete in this moment. The universe does not ask why it is quiet. It simply is, and here, in this extended night, you are allowed to do the same. There is a gentle exhaustion that comes not from effort, but from asking too many questions for too long. Not questions meant to be solved, but questions meant to reassure us that we are doing life correctly, that we are moving in the right direction, that nothing essential has been missed. This chapter begins where that exhaustion is finally allowed to rest. It does not seek answers. It does not even seek understanding. It allows the questions themselves to soften, to remain open without pressure. The universe is filled with unanswered questions, not as temporary gaps in knowledge, but as permanent features of reality. What existed before the expansion began? Why the laws of physics have the values they do? Whether there are limits to time or space? These questions are not hidden from us. They are openly present, acknowledged, and yet unresolved. And the universe does not appear distressed by this. Cosmic history continues without explanation. Galaxies form without knowing why gravity behaves as it does. Particles interact without awareness of the constants that govern them. Reality unfolds without commentary. This is not ignorance. It is simply existence without narrative. Human minds, however, are deeply narrative-driven. We look for reasons, causes, conclusions. We want stories to end in clarity. When they do not, discomfort arises. The unanswered question feels like a loose thread, something unfinished. But the cosmos models a different relationship with uncertainty. It holds it gently, without urgency. There are phenomena in space that we can describe precisely without fully understanding their origin. Dark energy accelerates expansion, yet its nature remains unknown. Dark matter shapes galaxies, yet we cannot observe it directly. These are not small details. They dominate the universe. And still, their mystery does not halt progress or collapse understanding. They coexist with knowledge. This coexistence is important. It suggests that not knowing does not invalidate knowing. Partial understanding is not failure. It is the natural state of any being inside a reality larger than itself. For someone lying awake at night, this perspective can be quietly relieving. You do not need to have everything figured out to continue existing meaningfully. You do not need a complete explanation of yourself, your past, or your future. The universe does not require self-justification. In deep space, there are signals we receive whose sources we cannot identify with certainty. Brief flashes of energy, repeating patterns, transient events that appear and vanish. Scientists catalog them, study them, and often leave them unresolved. These mysteries are not erased. They are kept open. The cosmos does not rush to close its own loop. There is an emotional parallel here that many people feel but rarely articulate. Some questions about life do not have answers that arrive cleanly. Why certain losses occurred, why particular paths closed, why some connections faded while others endured. These questions often remain, reshaping themselves over time rather than resolving. The universe suggests that this is not a flaw in experience. It is a feature of living inside something vast. Holding a question without an answer does not mean holding tension. It can mean holding space. Space wide enough that the question no longer presses inward. Space where the question can exist without dominating awareness. Astronomers often speak of error bars, ranges of uncertainty that accompany measurements. These are not admissions of failure. They are acknowledgments of limitation. They are built into the language of science. Precision includes uncertainty. Perhaps life could benefit from a similar practice, allowing ranges, allowing ambiguity, allowing feelings and thoughts to exist without being pinned down. The night sky itself is an unanswered question. We see light, but not origins. We see patterns, but not intentions. We name constellations, but they are projections, not structures. The sky does not correct us. It allows interpretation. As this chapter unfolds, there is no attempt to guide you toward a conclusion. Conclusions imply closure, and closure implies an ending. The universe does not operate that way. It transitions, it transforms, it continues. If you notice your mind reaching for meaning now, you do not need to stop it. You also do not need to follow it. The universe allows particles to move without monitoring each one. Awareness can do the same. The question, whatever it is, does not need to be answered tonight. It does not need to be answered ever. It may change form, it may dissolve. It may return later in a quieter shape. All of these outcomes are acceptable. When physicists encounter phenomena that defy current models, they do not discard reality. They expand their frameworks. They allow mystery to exist temporarily, sometimes permanently. Knowledge grows around uncertainty rather than replacing it. There is something deeply restful about this posture. It removes the burden of completion. It allows existence to be provisional, evolving, incomplete. You may feel now that the edges of thought are softer, that the need to resolve has diminished. This is not resignation. It is trust. Trust that reality can hold unanswered questions without collapsing. The universe has been doing this for billions of years. In the quiet of this moment, you are allowed to do the same, to let the question rest beside you, not inside you, to allow curiosity without urgency, to allow not knowing without anxiety. Nothing in the cosmos suggests that understanding is a prerequisite for belonging. Stars do not understand gravity. Galaxies do not understand expansion, and yet they are fully part of the universe. You do not need to understand yourself completely to belong here. As this chapter continues, it does not move toward insight. It moves toward permission. Permission to pause inquiry. Permission to let awareness widen rather than narrow. If sleep comes now, it will not interrupt the question. It will simply set it down for a while. The universe does this constantly. Processes pause. Energy redistributes. Nothing is lost. If wakefulness remains, that is also fine. Wakefulness without interrogation can be restful. Awareness does not need a task. There is a profound quiet in realizing that the universe does not ask why it exists. It does not seek validation. It unfolds because unfolding is what it does. You are allowed to exist with the same simplicity. So let the question remain unanswered. Let it float, weightless, like a distant galaxy whose light reaches you without explanation. You do not need to chase it. You do not need to name it. The universe is already holding it, and in that holding, there is room for rest,